The arrival. The day the Zarkian ships appeared in Earth's skies was the day humanity realized it wasn't alone in the universe. Massive vessels, each the size of a small city, hovered ominously over every major metropolis on the planet. The world stood still, breath held, waiting for first contact. Commander Sarah Chen of the United Earth Defense Force stood on the roof of the Pentagon, her eyes fixed on the looming ship above Washington, D.C., her fists clenched at her sides, muscles tense, ready for action. But what action could they take against beings capable of crossing the vast emptiness of space? "Commander," a voice crackled through her earpiece, "we're receiving a transmission from the alien vessel." Sarah's heart raced. "Patch it through," she ordered, her voice steady despite the adrenaline coursing through her veins. A deep, guttural voice filled the airwaves, translated in real time by Earth's most advanced AI systems. "People of Earth, we are the Zarkian Empire. Your planet is now under our protection and rule. Resistance is futile. Submit, and you may live to serve the glory of the Empire." Sarah's blood ran cold. This wasn't a peaceful first contact. This was an invasion. In the days that followed, the world's governments scrambled to respond. Military forces mobilized, but their most advanced weapons seemed primitive compared to the Zarkian technology. Missiles were swatted from the sky like flies, tanks crushed like tin cans, and fighter jets plucked from the air by invisible forces. Sarah found herself in the heart of the resistance, coordinating what little defense Earth could muster. But it was like fighting the ocean with a bucket. The Zarkians were too advanced, too powerful. 2 weeks after their arrival, the Zarkians made their move. Smaller ships descended from the motherships, landing in strategic locations around the globe. From these ships emerged the conquerors, towering, reptilian beings with scales that shimmered like polished metal and eyes that glowed with an otherworldly intelligence. Sarah watched from a hidden bunker as the Zarkian forces marched through the streets of Washington, D.C. Their weapons were like nothing she'd ever seen. Rifles that fired bolts of plasma, shields that seemed to bend light itself, and armor that made them look more machine than living being. "We need to fall back," General Thompson said, his voice heavy with defeat. "We can't win this fight. Not head-on." Sarah turned to him, fire in her eyes. "So we just give up? Let them take our world without a fight?" The general placed a hand on her shoulder. "No, Commander. We regroup. We plan. We find their weaknesses. This isn't the end. It's just the beginning of a different kind of war." As the words left his mouth, an explosion rocked the bunker. Alarms blared, and the acrid smell of smoke filled the air. They'd been found. Everybody out. Sarah shouted, grabbing her rifle. "Move to evacuation point Bravo." The bunker erupted into controlled chaos as soldiers and civilians alike rushed for the emergency exits. Sarah took up the rear, making sure everyone made it out. As she reached the exit, a plasma bolt sizzled past her head, leaving a smoking hole in the wall. She spun, rifle raised, and found herself face to face with a Zarkian warrior. It towered over her, its reptilian features twisted into what might have been a smile. "Puny human," it growled, raising its weapon. But Sarah was faster. Years of training took over as she squeezed the trigger. The rifle bucked in her hands, and a hail of bullets peppered the alien's chest. To her shock, they seemed to bounce off its armor like pebbles. The Zarkian laughed, a sound like grinding stones. "Your primitive weapons cannot harm me, human. Submit, and I may grant you a quick death." Sarah's mind raced. The armor was impenetrable, but maybe. She aimed higher, squeezing off another burst. This time, the bullets found their mark in the alien's unprotected face. Green blood sprayed as the Zarkian stumbled backward, roaring in pain and fury. Not waiting to see if it would fall, Sarah turned and ran, her heart pounding in her ears. She burst out of the bunker into the chaos of the streets above. The sky was filled with Zarkian ships, raining destruction on the city. But amidst the carnage, she saw something that gave her hope. humans fighting back. A group of civilians had commandeered a fallen Zarkian weapon, turning its plasma bolts against its former owners. A squad of Marines provided covering fire as medics evacuated wounded from a collapsed building. Everywhere she looked, humans were refusing to give up, refusing to submit. As Sarah ran towards the evacuation point, dodging debris and plasma fire, a thought crystallized in her mind. The Zarkians might have superior technology, but they had underestimated the human spirit. Humanity wouldn't go down without a fight, and they would find a way to win this war. She reached the evacuation point, a hidden underground railway that would take them out of the city. As the doors closed behind her and the train began to move, Sarah allowed herself a moment to breathe. They had lost this battle, but the war was far from over. "What now, Commander?" a young soldier asked, his eyes wide with fear and uncertainty. Sarah stood tall, her resolve hardening. "Now we fight back. We learn their weaknesses, we adapt, we overcome. They think they've won, but they've just woken a sleeping giant. Humanity is stronger than they know, and we're going to show them exactly how strong we can be." As the train sped into the darkness, carrying the seeds of resistance to safety, Sarah began to plan. The Zarkians had made a grave mistake in underestimating humanity, and she was going to make sure they regretted it. The resistance. 6 months after the Zarkian invasion, Earth was a changed world. The alien conquerors had established their dominion, setting up massive fortresses in every major city. Humans were relegated to second-class citizens on their own planet, forced to work in Zarkian factories and mines, extracting resources to fuel the alien war machine. But beneath the surface, resistance burned like an unquenchable flame. In a hidden bunker deep beneath the ruins of Chicago, Commander Sarah Chen stood before a motley crew of fighters. Soldiers, scientists, hackers, and ordinary civilians who refused to accept alien rule. They were the heart of the resistance. "We've made progress," Sarah said, her voice echoing in the cavernous space. "But it's not enough. The Zarkians still think they have us beat. It's time we show them how wrong they are." Dr. Amit Patel, a brilliant xenobiologist, stepped forward. "Commander, I think I've found something." He pulled up a holographic display, showing the internal anatomy of a Zarkian. Their biology is incredibly resilient, but they have a weakness. Their nervous system is hypersensitive to certain frequencies of sound. A spark of hope ignited in Sarah's chest. "Are you saying we can hurt them with sound?" Emmett nodded, excitement clear in his eyes. "More than hurt. At the right frequency and volume, we could incapacitate them completely." This was the break they'd been waiting for. Sarah's mind raced with the possibilities. "All right, people. We have our weapon. Now we need a plan." Over the next weeks, the resistance worked tirelessly. Engineers repurposed old speakers and amplifiers. Technicians wrote code to generate the precise frequencies needed, and field agents scouted Zarkian patrol routes and security measures. Finally, the day of reckoning arrived. Sarah led a small team into the heart of Chicago, now a sprawling Zarkian stronghold. They moved through the shadows, avoiding patrols and security drones, each member carrying a piece of their sonic weapon. As they neared the central plaza, Sarah's heart pounded. This was it. If they failed here, the resistance might never recover. But if they succeeded, it could be the turning point of the war. They set up the device in an abandoned building overlooking the plaza. As the sun set, casting long shadows across the alien architecture, Sarah gave the signal. The weapon powered up with a low hum. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then, the Zarkians in the plaza began to twitch and convulse. Their movements became erratic. Weapons dropped from nerveless claws. Within minutes, dozens of the alien warriors lay incapacitated on the ground. "It works," Amit whispered, awe in his voice. "It actually works." But their victory was short-lived. Alarms blared across the city, and the sky filled with Zarkian dropships. They'd struck a blow, but now they had to survive the counterattack. "Fall back," Sarah ordered, grabbing the sonic device. "We've got what we came for. Now we need to get this tech to every resistance cell on the planet." They ran through the chaotic streets, plasma bolts sizzling past them. Sarah's mind raced. They needed a distraction, something to buy them time to escape. As if in answer to her thoughts, the ground shook with a massive explosion. She looked up to see a Zarkian warship listing in the sky, smoke pouring from its engines. More explosions followed, and Sarah realized with a jolt of excitement that they weren't alone. Other resistance cells had launched their own attacks, turning the city into a battleground. Taking advantage of the chaos, Sarah led her team to their extraction point, a hidden underground rail line that would take them out of the city. As they descended into the tunnel, a plasma bolt caught Sarah in the shoulder, spinning her around. She found herself face to face with a Zarkian commander, its eyes glowing with hatred. "You'll pay for this, human," it snarled, raising its weapon for a killing blow. But before it could fire, a figure blurred past Sarah. Jack, a former UFC fighter turned resistance member, slammed into the alien with the force of a freight train. The Zarkian, caught off guard by the sheer physicality of the attack, stumbled backward. Jack didn't let up. He rained blows on the alien, his fists finding weak points in its armor. "How's this for a puny human?" he growled, driving his knee into the Zarkian's midsection. The alien crumpled, its weapon clattering to the ground. Jack turned to Sarah, a fierce grin on his face despite the blood trickling from a cut above his eye. "Told you these bastards aren't so tough in close quarters." Sarah nodded, impressed and grateful. "Remind me to never piss you off. Now let's move." They made it to the rail car, the sounds of battle fading as they sped away from the city. As Sarah looked at her team, battered, exhausted, but alive and victorious, she felt a swell of pride. "We did it," she said, her voice thick with emotion. "We proved that we can hurt them, that we can fight back." Emmett nodded, cradling the sonic device. "And now we have the means to do it on a global scale. We can share this technology with resistance cells all over the world." Sarah's mind was already racing ahead, planning their next move. "We need to strike while they're reeling. Hit them hard, hit them fast, and show the world that the Zarkians aren't invincible." As the rail cars sped through the darkness, carrying them to safety, Sarah felt something she hadn't felt since the invasion began. Hope. Real, tangible hope. The Zarkians had made the mistake of assuming that superior technology meant certain victory. But they were learning the hard way that humanity's greatest strength wasn't in its weapons or its machines. It was in its spirit, its determination, its refusal to ever give up. The resistance had landed its first real blow, and Sarah Chen intended to make sure it wouldn't be the last. The war for Earth was far from over. In fact, it was only just beginning. The discovery. 1 year into the Zarkian occupation, the tide of war was shifting. Resistance cells across the globe, armed with sonic weapons and a renewed sense of hope, had begun to push back against their alien oppressors. But the Zarkians were far from defeated, and their retaliation was brutal. In the ruins of what was once London, Commander Sarah Chen crouched in the shadow of a collapsed building, watching a column of Zarkian troops march past. The aliens had adapted quickly, developing shields that could block the effects of the sonic weapons. The resistance needed a new edge, and fast. Sarah's earpiece crackled to life. "Commander, we've got something. You need to see this." It was Dr. Amit Patel, his voice tight with excitement. "On my way," Sarah whispered, slipping away from her observation post. Hours later, she stood in a makeshift lab deep beneath the city, staring at a holographic display in disbelief. "Are you sure about this, Amit?" The scientist nodded, his eyes gleaming. "I've triple-checked the results. It's real, Sarah." On the display was a human DNA strand, but it was like nothing Sarah had ever seen before. Portions of it glowed with an otherworldly energy, pulsing with potential. "We've always wondered why the Zarkians invaded," Emmett explained. Why Earth out of all the planets in the galaxy? Well, I think I've found the answer. It's us, humans. He manipulated the display, zooming in on the glowing sections of DNA. These segments, they're dormant now, but they contain genetic potential far beyond anything we've ever seen. Strength, speed, regeneration, even psychic abilities. It's all there, locked away in our genes. Sarah's mind reeled. Are you saying we're some kind of super beings? Emmett shrugged. Potentially. My theory is that sometime in our distant past, we were engineered. By whom? I don't know. But the Zarkians must have detected this potential in us. That's why they came. They want to harness it for themselves. The implications were staggering. If they could find a way to activate these dormant genes to unlock humanity's true potential. Can you do it? Sarah asked. Can you wake up these abilities? Emmett hesitated. Possibly. But it's incredibly risky. The process could kill the subject. And even if it works, we don't know what the side effects might be. Sarah stood silent for a long moment, weighing the risks against the desperate need for a game-changer in this war. Finally, she made her decision. Do it, she said. Use me as the test subject. Emmett's eyes widened. Sarah, no, it's too dangerous. We can't risk losing you. But Sarah's mind was made up. We're losing this war, Emmett. Every day, more people die, more of our planet is stripped away. If there's even a chance this could turn the tide, we have to take it. And I won't ask anyone to take a risk I'm not willing to take myself. Over the next week, Emmett and his team worked tirelessly, preparing for the procedure. Sarah underwent a battery of tests, her body and mind pushed to their limits in preparation for what was to come. Finally, the day arrived. Sarah lay on a cold metal table, her heart pounding as Emmett prepared the injection that would either unlock her hidden potential or kill her. Last chance to back out, Emmett said, his voice trembling slightly. Sarah met his eyes, her gaze steady. Do it. The needle pierced her skin, and liquid fire spread through her veins. Pain unlike anything she'd ever experienced consumed her. Sarah's back arched, her muscles spasming as her very DNA was rewritten. For what felt like an eternity, she hovered between life and death, her consciousness fragmented. She saw flashes of Earth's past, of ancient beings manipulating the building blocks of life. She saw possible futures, some glorious, some terrifying. And then, suddenly, it was over. Sarah's eyes snapped open. The world around her seemed sharper, more vibrant. She could hear the heartbeats of everyone in the room, could smell the fear and excitement in the air. She sat up, marveling at how effortless the movement felt. Her body hummed with energy, with potential. Sarah, Emmett approached cautiously. How do you feel? She turned to him, a smile spreading across her face. I feel incredible. Over the next few days, Sarah discovered the extent of her new abilities. She was stronger, faster, her reflexes heightened beyond human norms. Wounds healed in minutes rather than days. And most incredibly, she found she could sense the thoughts and emotions of those around her, even influence them to a degree. But there was no time to fully explore her newfound powers. The Zarkians had launched a major offensive, threatening to wipe out resistance strongholds across Europe. Sarah led a counterattack, moving with inhuman speed and strength. Zarkian weapons that would have vaporized a normal human barely slowed her down. She tore through their defenses like they were paper, her mind reaching out to coordinate the resistance forces with unprecedented precision. In the heat of battle, she came face to face with a Zarkian war leader, a behemoth twice her size. The alien's eyes widened in shock as Sarah matched its strength, blow for blow. What are you? It growled, its voice a mix of fear and awe. Sarah grinned, her eyes glowing with power. I'm human, she said, and you're about to find out just how strong we can be. The battle raged for hours, but in the end, the Zarkians were forced to retreat. It was the Resistance's biggest victory yet, a turning point in the war. As the dust settled, Sarah stood amid the wreckage of the alien war machines, her team gathering around her. They looked at her with a mixture of awe and hope. "What now, Commander?" one of them asked. Sarah looked out over the battlefield, her enhanced senses picking up the sounds and smells of victory. But she knew this was just the beginning. "Now," she said, her voice ringing with determination, "we take back our planet. And then we take the fight to them." The awakening of humanity's true potential had begun. The Zarkians had come to Earth seeking to exploit that potential for themselves. Instead, they had sparked a revolution that would reshape the galaxy. The war was far from over. But for the first time since the invasion, the future looked bright. Humanity was awakening, and the universe would never be the same. The uprising. The awakening of Sarah Chen's latent abilities marked the beginning of a new era in the war against the Zarkians. Over the next 6 months, carefully selected resistance fighters underwent the risky procedure to unlock their own hidden potential. Not all survived, but those who did emerged as beacons of hope for humanity. They called themselves the Awakened. On a crisp autumn morning, Sarah stood atop a hill overlooking what was once New York City. The Zarkian fortress that dominated the skyline seemed less imposing now, more like a challenge than an insurmountable obstacle. "Are we ready?" asked Jack, the former UFC fighter, now an awakened himself. His muscles rippled with barely contained power, his eyes glowing faintly in the early morning light. Sarah nodded, her mind reaching out to touch the consciousness of every resistance fighter in the area. "It's time," she said, her voice echoing both aloud and in the minds of her troops. "Today, we take back our home." The attack began with a thunderous roar. Awakened humans moved with blinding speed, tearing through Zarkian defenses like tissue paper. Regular resistance fighters followed in their wake, armed with a combination of stolen alien tech and good old-fashioned human ingenuity. Sarah led the charge, her enhanced senses allowing her to anticipate enemy movements before they happened. She dodged plasma bolts with ease, closing the distance to a group of Zarkian elites. The aliens, once so confident in their superiority, now looked at her with fear in their glowing eyes. "What are you?" one of them hissed, its voice a mix of awe and terror. Sarah's lips curved into a fierce grin. "We're humanity unchained," she said, before launching into a flurry of strikes that left the Zarkians broken and unconscious. Across the city, similar scenes played out. Jack used his enhanced strength to literally throw Zarkian tanks into each other, creating impromptu barricades for the resistance fighters. Dr. Amit Patel, who had reluctantly undergone the awakening himself, used his newly heightened intelligence to hack into Zarkian systems, turning their own defenses against them. But the aliens weren't going down without a fight. As the battle raged on, the sky darkened with the arrival of massive Zarkian warships. Energy weapons powerful enough to level city blocks rained down destruction. Sarah gritted her teeth, reaching out with her mind to coordinate the resistance's response. "Amit," she called out both verbally and telepathically. "We need those ships taken down." The scientist-turned-warrior nodded, his fingers flying over a stolen Zarkian console. "I'm working on it," he replied. "Their systems are adaptive, but so am I. Just need a few more minutes." Those minutes felt like an eternity as Sarah and her team fought to keep the Zarkian ground forces at bay. The Awakened were powerful, but not invincible. For every alien they took down, more seemed to pour out of the fortress. Just as it seemed they might be overwhelmed, Amit's voice rang out in triumph. "Got it. Sarah, the ships are ours." Above them, the massive Zarkian warships suddenly stopped firing. There was a moment of eerie silence, and then the ships turned their weapons on the alien fortress. The Zarkians on the ground froze in confusion and terror as their own ships began to bombard them. In that moment of chaos, Sarah saw their chance. "This is it," she shouted, her voice carrying to every resistance fighter in the city. "Push forward. Take the fortress." The final assault was fierce but brief. With their air support turned against them, and faced with the unprecedented power of the Awakened, The Zarkian forces crumbled. As the sun began to set, Sarah stood in what had once been the Zarkian command center, now littered with the bodies of alien soldiers and the debris of battle. She looked out over the city, battered, scared, but free. "We did it," Jack said, coming to stand beside her. "We actually did it." Sarah nodded, allowing herself a moment to feel the weight of their victory. But she knew this was just the beginning. "One city down," she said. "Now we take back the rest of the world." Over the next weeks, the news of New York's liberation spread like wildfire. Resistance cells around the globe, emboldened by the victory, launched their own offensives. The awakened, though still few in number, turned the tide wherever they fought. But as they pushed the Zarkians back, Sarah couldn't shake a growing sense of unease. The aliens were retreating too easily, almost as if. "They're letting us win," she realized with a jolt. She called an emergency meeting of the resistance leadership, sharing her suspicions. "But why?" Amit asked, his enhanced mind already racing through possibilities. "Why would they give up their hold on Earth?" Sarah's eyes narrowed as the pieces fell into place. "Because Earth isn't their real target," she said. "We are." The awakened. "They came here to trigger our evolution, to force us to unlock our potential." A heavy silence fell over the room as the implications sank in. Jack was the first to speak. "So what do we do now?" Sarah stood, her decision made. "We finish this. We've taken back our world, but as long as the Zarkians are out there, we'll never be truly free. It's time we take the fight to them." She turned to Amit. "How close are we to understanding their faster-than-light technology?" The scientist's eyes lit up with excitement. "Close. With access to their ships, I think we could have a working prototype within months." Sarah nodded, a plan already forming in her mind. "Then that's our next move. We reverse engineer their tech, we build our own ships, and then we go after them. We find their homeworld." The room erupted in a mix of excitement and apprehension. This was more than they had ever dared to hope for, not just defeating the invasion, but taking the fight to the stars. As the others discussed the logistics of their bold new plan, Sarah stepped away, looking out at the recovering city. The Zarkians had come to Earth seeking to exploit humanity's hidden potential. Instead, they had awakened the sleeping giant. Humanity was no longer confined to its cradle. They had been forged in the fire of invasion, tempered by hardship, and awakened to their true strength. And now, they were ready to claim their place among the stars. The real war, Sarah realized, was just beginning. But this time, humanity would be the invaders, and the galaxy would never be the same. The Reckoning. 5 years after the liberation of Earth, humanity stood on the brink of a new frontier. The scars of the Zarkian invasion were still visible on the planet's surface, but they served as a reminder of humanity's resilience rather than its defeat. In orbit above Earth, a fleet of sleek warships hung against the backdrop of stars. They were marvels of human ingenuity, reverse-engineered from Zarkian technology, but imbued with the unique spark of human creativity. At the heart of this armada was the flagship Defiance, and on its bridge stood Commander Sarah Chen. Sarah's eyes, glowing softly with the power of her awakened genes, surveyed the bustling activity around her. Dr. Amit Patel, now Chief Science Officer, approached with a holographic display. "The final diagnostics are complete," he reported. "The fleet is ready." Sarah nodded, a mix of anticipation and trepidation coursing through her. This was it. After years of preparation, they were about to embark on a journey that would take them far beyond their solar system, into the heart of Zarkian space. "Send the signal," she ordered. "It's time." As one, the engines of the human fleet roared to life. The fabric of space itself seemed to ripple as the ships engaged their faster-than-light drives, leaving Earth behind in a dazzling flash of light. The journey to Zarkian space took weeks, even with their advanced propulsion. But finally, they arrived at the edge of enemy territory. Sarah stood at the view screen, taking in the alien stars and unfamiliar constellations. Multiple contacts detected. The sensor officer called out, "Zarkian warships approaching." Sarah's mind reached out, connecting with the other awakened throughout the fleet. In an instant, battle plans were formed and relayed. "All ships, battle formations," she commanded. "Let's show them what humanity can do." The space around them erupted into chaos as human and Zarkian ships clashed. Energy weapons lanced across the void, shields flared under brutal impacts, and fighters danced deadly ballets between the larger vessels. But this was not the one-sided slaughter the Zarkians had envisioned when they first came to Earth. Humanity fought with a ferocity and ingenuity that caught the aliens off guard. Awakened humans used their enhanced abilities to predict enemy movements, coordinating the fleet with unprecedented precision. As the battle raged, Sarah noticed something odd. The Zarkian ships, while formidable, weren't fighting with the full might she had expected. It was almost as if, "They're hurting us," she realized with a start. "Aim it. Analyze their formation. Where are they trying to push us?" The scientist's enhanced mind worked at lightning speed. "There," he said after a moment, pointing to a seemingly empty sector of space. "But I don't understand. There's nothing there." Sarah's eyes narrowed. "No, there's something. We just can't see it yet." She made a decision. "All ships push through to those coordinates. Whatever they're hiding, we're going to find it." The human fleet surged forward, breaking through the Zarkian lines. As they approached the designated area, space itself seemed to shimmer and distort. Massive energy signature detected. Amit shouted, It's a portal of some kind." Before their eyes, a swirling vortex of energy materialized. And through it, they could see another star system, one dominated by a massive ring world that dwarfed any structure humanity had ever conceived. Their homeworld, Sarah breathed. Without warning, their ships were caught in the portal's pull. In a disorienting flash, the human fleet found itself in orbit around the Zarkian ring world. But instead of facing a hostile armada, they were met with an eerie silence. "We're being hailed," the communications officer reported, surprise evident in his voice. Sarah steeled herself. On screen, the view screen flickered to life, revealing not the reptilian visage of a Zarkian, but a being of pure energy, its form barely constrained to a humanoid shape. "Greetings, children of Earth," the being said, its voice resonating in their minds rather than their ears. "We have been waiting a long time for this moment." Sarah's mind reeled. "Who? What are you?" The being's form rippled, as if in amusement. "We are the progenitors. The ones who seeded your world with potential eons ago. The ones who guided the Zarkians to awaken that potential." The revelation hit Sarah like a physical blow. You're responsible for all of this. The invasion, the war, the suffering. "A necessary catalyst," the progenitor replied, its tone maddeningly calm. "Your species needed to evolve, to unlock the gifts we left dormant in your genes. The Zarkians were merely tools to that end." Anger flared within Sarah, reflected in the sudden glow of her eyes. "You had no right. Millions died. And billions will thrive," the being countered. "You stand now at the threshold of greatness. The galaxy awaits, and you have proven yourselves worthy to take your place among the cosmic community." Sarah's mind raced, grappling with the implications. Everything they had fought for, everything they had suffered, had been part of some cosmic plan. Part of her wanted to lash out, to reject this grand design that had caused so much pain. But as she looked around at her crew, at the fleet they had built, at the incredible journey they had made, she realized that the progenitor was right. Humanity had been forged in the crucible of adversity, emerging stronger than ever before. She turned back to the view screen, her decision made. "We will forge our own path," she declared. "We accept our place in the galaxy, but on our terms. We are not your pawns, not your children to be manipulated. We are humanity, and we will shape our own destiny." The progenitor's form pulsed, and Sarah sensed something like pride emanating from it. As it should be, it said. The age of guidance is over. The age of humanity has begun. With that, the being faded from view, leaving the human fleet in orbit around a world of wonders and possibilities. In the days that followed, humanity made contact with other species, learned of galactic politics and cosmic threats that dwarfed their conflict with the Zarkians. They found allies and enemies, marvels and horrors beyond their wildest imaginings. But through it all, they remained true to who they were. Humans, resilient, adaptable, and unbelievably strong. As Sarah stood on the observation deck of the Defiance, watching shuttles ferry between the ship and the ringworld below, she felt a sense of pride and purpose unlike anything she had ever known. Hell of a view, isn't it? Jack said, coming to stand beside her. Sarah nodded, a smile playing on her lips. It's just the beginning, she replied. We've got a whole galaxy to explore. Jack chuckled. Think they're ready for us? Sarah's eyes glowed with determination and the promise of adventures to come. Ready or not, here we come. As the Defiance prepared to embark on its next mission, Sarah couldn't help but feel a sense of excitement. The Zarkians had intended to exploit humanity's potential. Instead, they had unleashed it. And now, that unleashed potential was reaching for the stars. Humanity had proved itself unbelievably strong, and the universe would never be the same.